that they have released. Blizzard have been adding a lot of new maps to the map pool compared to seasons past where they would only switch out one or two. And there's the players going to be getting inside their booths right now. But if you're just tuning in, it is all tied up 1-1, and I'm already giggling like a little squirrel about these names. Number one right there is going to be J-Dub.
J-Dub, the team captain for Team Epic. Of course, not just loving the Starcraft 2 league that we're having here today, but also talking a lot about his love for his job, that he gets that chance of having a real and positive impact. And there are few things I think better to do than something that you believe in.
Oh, absolutely. And also, I kind of like him. I was reading the third question there, and he said in Brood War he would just play big game hunters and mass carriers, which that's about all I knew how to do back then. So we'll see if maybe it'll work here. I don't know.
Yeah, J-Dub plays Zerg now in Starcraft 2. Going to make it still possible. You can still neural parasite the carriers and advance them en masse. However, J-Dub is their ace Zerg player, has been performing so well in those Game 7 matches, and he's going to be going up against V Dizzy, one of the strong Terran players on Team IBM, looking really tough.
Oh my goodness. And the third question says, what other hobbies do you have? Oh, you know, just wrestling, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and a lot of other stuff that he could just beat me up in the booth while also beating me in Starcraft 2.
Beat you up with that pencil alignment. That's another one of his hobbies listed there. But, you know, it's kind of funny to see that there's that sort of weird, I guess I don't even want to call it mainstream, but more of like the media concerned view of the gamer, the person who doesn't have any other hobbies, who sits alone. And you just see that they're nothing but standard engineers, accountants, lawyers at these companies, who, in VDC's case, are totally ripped badasses who wrestle and play Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
You took the words right out of my mouth, Sean, so we are going to see how good he is in this game. You mentioned the next map is going to be Cloud Kingdom, probably one of the prettiest maps that have ever been released on the Starcraft ladder, and it also makes my computer lag like crazy, so it's a good one. Now,
it is going to be a Zerg versus Terran. What are some of the ZVT styles you've seen from the Zerg perspective on this map?
Absolutely. Now, this map does have a lot of bases on it, and also the map, there's so many different routes for those little annoying Zerglings to attack any location on the map. At one point, I counted the amount of ramps. I forget how many ramps there are in total on this map, but that's going to be good for a Zerg player because you can find ways to counterattack with those Zerglings. So it's really going to come down to the Zerg player. Is he going to be counterattacking the entire game? I think in this matchup on this map, it's going to be important. It's going to come down to the Zerglings because they always have the opportunity to attack. Is the decision making going to be good?
Yeah, and I mean, that's absolutely essential for Terrans to cover all those various spaces. And in fact, I think that if the Terran can lock down on those three bases, that's what gives Zerg a lot of trouble. It's not even so much a two-base timing push, it's the three-base. I honestly think the distances are almost a little bit too difficult to do a two-base push on, because if it fails, there's almost no good follow-up you can have as Terran.
Yeah, absolutely. And from the games I've seen on this map, that three-base timing you're talking about, Sean, is going to have to be exactly what he looks out for. Now, that makes me wonder, do you think a Zerg player could do a two-base timing on this map to try and prevent a Terran from securing that third?
I think that it could be a little bit difficult for the Zerg player. I mean, generally going for something like map control focus with Mutiling and then just trying to take those expansions would definitely be the best bet. But it's so interesting that with those various layers of ramps across the map, it makes it really hard for ground armies, but the instant you hit that air force of Broodlords, it can just march like a giant fleet of doom.
Yeah, there is a lot of different areas for those Broodlords to hang out on this map. And also this map does have, it's really kind of a scenario where there's the third base that you can take. And is there any preference you would have, Sean, if you were playing on this map as either of these players, on which third to take?
You know, I'm really torn. I really think it depends on strategy that you're doing. I honestly feel like if you're going Mutiling, expanding very far away, you're almost glad to keep them spread out, especially with the fourth and fifth bases, keeping them on opposite ends. Whereas if you're going for something a little more slow, that Stefano-style Ling Infestor into Ultralisk, just sort of picking one end and extending along that. Terran really kind of has to take the closest expansions one at a time and just really attack along the lane that he's pushing.
Yeah, again, we're going to have to watch if this game does come out to a more macro side. That's the kind of game I love on this map, just because there's so many weird bases. There's even a base in the center which only has a couple of mineral patches, and a lot of times you will see players vying to try and secure that base, just because this map does play out in that way. And there is our very, very awesome audience.
Now, I will say, in terms of the sort of strategy that I think should be the basic opening that we're going to see coming out of VDZ would likely be either a straight pure early expand. This is probably one of the few maps that I don't like Reactor Hellion openings on. There's just not a lot of good places to park them, a lot of good places to control. And interestingly, Banshee play has become very popular for Terran vs. Zerg on this map.
Yeah, that is true. I have seen a lot of Banshee openings on this map, and a lot of it is that natural is pretty well easy to defend. There's even a little bit of an extra cliff there that helps make that entrance a little bit smaller. It's not like on Metalopolis, for example, where the majority of your expansion is completely vulnerable to those Hellions. And so that does mean that the Banshee play becomes viable because those mineral patches are kind of susceptible to those Banshee harass, especially if you're going to be bringing in a second Banshee. Even the main base does have a little bit of a vulnerability to the Banshee, so I wouldn't be surprised to see that take place. And J-Dub was just saying that he is messing with his little settings there.
Yeah, VDZ's actually just finalizing his control settings. Let's go ahead and take a look at the bracket once again for any of you who have just joined us as we're here in the AHGL Season 2 Grand Finals. We originally started with 30 companies. They played down to the playoffs where they managed to get to 16 teams. And one of the most interesting facts I think about this bracket is that whatever seed you were, as you see at the far left and far right, you pretty much never lost to a lower seed.
Yeah, that is absolutely true, and you can see there IBM just tearing through, and Epic making it all the way to the finals. Zynga, of course, made it very far as well. They did well in the last season, but Twitter also making it quite far, but they unfortunately did have to get eliminated here. So, any predictions for this upcoming game here, Sean? As so far the teams have been pretty evenly matched, so it now is basically reset as a best of 5. So I'm just curious on if you think it's going to be the VDZ or the J-Dub.
You know, I think that historically I'd have to go with J-Dub. I've seen more of his games. He ends up, I really think, pulling his team through in a lot of those key ace matches, if it ever really comes to that. Only once, I believe, did Epic go to that key deciding game number 5. So I really think that his experience, especially in that long-term play, he's not the sort of player to do some sort of big cheese. He's not the sort of player to lose to a lot of cheese. And it looks like, oh my goodness, J-Dub and VDZ are ready. Ladies and gents, are you ready?
All right, the countdown has begun. Once again, the map is going to be Cloud Kingdom.
Yep.
This is going to be quite the epic game reminder that this map has so many ramps that Zerglings will be very, very effective. Sean, why don't you introduce our 2 players?
In the bottom left corner, playing for Team Epic, the captain.